About gut health. Running a little bit behind here for our live webinar. We had some technical difficulties with our webcam, but we got it all working now. And today is going to be a great episode here about gut health. That's an essential root cause that we are helping people with and getting to optimal levels of health because it all starts in the gut, as Hippocrates says. And as more recently, we've discovered the leaky gut, which is what we're going to discuss today, what that really means, leaky gut. And so I'm going to let the people tuning in let them know how we're doing here and wait for some people to come on. And so today is really an amazing discussion about gut health. And gut health is just want to make sure okay. So yeah, all is good. So what is gut health and why is it so important? And what does that all mean for us to get healthier? So let's begin. So we know that because functional medicine always wanted to get to the root cause and still is focused on underlying contributors of aging, we always knew the gut was an essential place to start. And again, it was this liver gut connection. So, liver detoxification, working on the liver was a major focus and is a major focus in functional medicine. But we have to remember, and this is again what we're going to speak about today, that gut health and liver health are connected. There is a holistic connection with the gut and many systems in our body, and that is the key. It is not just the gut standing by itself. It affects the brain, cardiovascular, blood sugar, and metabolism, affects hormones and thyroid and other hormones such as estrogen, and it affects our neurotransmitters, serotonin and epinephrine. So it really is part of every system in our body, including our immune system. So this is why getting to the root cause of gut health is essential. So functional medicine under Jeffrey Bland 25 or 30 years ago talked about this 4R program in healing the gut. And this is before we had these very advanced stool tests that are DNA PCR stool test technology, PCR DNA technology, which is more recent in medicine. Again, going back in functional medicine 25, 30 years ago, we had the typical standard stool cultures that many are using today and fall short on what we know about the gut microbiome. You can't really rely on those standard stool cultures to really work on getting to a healthy level of gut optimization, gut health, gut optimization. What can we do about that? This was the 4R program. The 4R program basically went into the number one, remove these so-called pathogens. Again, we learned so much more in the last 20 years about the gut and each individual species that we now call keystone species are being researched and what their benefits are for us. So we really are starting to key in on keystone species, which means species of bacteria, good bacteria that we see are having benefits that we see in the research is the predominant bacteria responsible for some of the benefits that we see: good metabolism, low rates of cancer, uh, good BDNF, which is brain derived neurotrophic factor. So this in the research we see with healthy gut microbiomes are are getting more into details of the specific keystone species, and we'll go over some of them that are very important to see on a very good stool test, which is really going to be key in getting to good gut health. So remove was the first R in functional medicine, and we looked at natural modalities to remove. You're looking at herbs that have been studied. And again, in functional medicine, you have to be safe when you're using many of these antimicrobial herbs because they do They do thin the blood, so we have to be cautious with medications that thin the blood as well. They do interact with some psychiatric medications, and they do go through a liver detoxification systems that many medications go through, so they can increase or decrease the potency or the effectiveness of the medications. We have to be cautious about herbal and drug interactions, but being that we know that there are some very effective herbs that are antimicrobial and they don't hurt these beneficial, good bacteria, but they do bring down this overgrowth of bacteria. So we removed pathogens. But again, on these newer tests, we really can tease out and be more specific on what kinds of overgrowth and what types of pathogens. Are they fungus? Are they parasites? Are they over inflammatory types of bacteria, autoimmune stimulating types of bacteria, much more specific now. And and that's what's so important. And so remove, and then the next R was replace. We were going to replace the enzymes, digestive enzymes, hydrochloric acid if there was a low stomach acid, and replace what might have been taken out in the removal period. So some of those antimicrobials could have changed the digestive process. So we're going to replace now, remove, replace, reinoculate is the third R. We're going to bring back some of these beneficial. Good bacteria. Again, we've learned so much more about these keystone beneficial bacteria that it's so much more than lactobacillus and bifidus, which is what's in most probiotics. Now there are more probiotics coming out with these additional keystone species that we're going to learn about today. So after the reinoculate, we're going to repair. That was the fourth R. And we used ingredients such as glutamine and mucilaginous type of plants that help to coat and soothe the mucosa, the mucosa layer of the intestines. So, and we use minerals and nutrients such as zinc carnosine to help heal the gut. Again, we're research based. Integrative medicine is researched, science based. So we saw in the research a certain type of mineral that's when linked with an amino acid really did heal the gut, and that's zinc carnosine and glutamine, which is a major fuel for the enterocytes. And we see glutamine being used in the hospital setting over the years as more research came about, but it wasn't used for many years as functional medicine was using it. But again, that's the beauty of integrative medicine. They look into what is the integrative medicine world using, and at times they incorporate that into conventional medicine. And we see that with glutamine. We saw that with arginine being used in many of the supplements that are being given in the hospital. And we saw that with whey protein as so very, very fascinating. And so that is the repair process. That was the fourth R. But again, we know so much more about gut health now. And this is what we're going to go into. Why was it so important to work on the gut? As we learned in the last 20 years, the gut is where 70%, at least 70% of our immune system really starts in the gut. T cells, all the different adaptive, innate parts of the immune system are being activated at the gut level. And it makes sense because the gut is where we're taking in the outside world into our internal world. And the gut really is the place, the interface where that happens. So the gut needed to have an active immune surveillance, but we don't want it to be over activated. And that's what's so key. But we want it to be robust enough where it could deal with invaders and viruses and parasites, but we don't want it to be overactivated. And that's where it stimulates the immune system to start not recognizing friend from foe, from our own self, from the enemy. So therefore it turns on our own cells, and that's called autoimmunity. And that's where a lot of autoimmunity starts in the gut. And that's why the gut health is important and essential as the scourge of autoimmunity is increasing and chronic diseases are increasing. We need to get to gut health. This is why we're doing this live here, and this is why We are helping people in our integrative center, and we've been helping people for the last 25 years with gut health. But gut health has improved, has become more effective and more efficient, and has enabled us to reach more optimal levels of health because of the advanced testing, the accumulation of 25 years of research, of the supplements, the nutrients, the nutraceutical herbal botanicals, and the active ingredients in them that are working to bring down overgrowth of bacteria, whether they're yeast or parasites, fungus. And we're learning so much more about the digestive tract, how to replace the acidity of the stomach and digestive enzymes, and digesting of fats with bile, and the liver connection, and especially now the hormone connection with a very essential enzyme that can be measured on a very advanced gut stool test that tells us now about a phase in the liver that took our hormones, especially estrogen and some pesticides and plastics that are like estrogen mimickers, estrogen pseudoestrogens, they call them, because they kind of sit on the receptor and they fool our estrogen receptor. These are plastics, phthalates, BPA, they're estrogen mimickers. But our liver phase 2 detoxification is what removed it. And we can see from an enzyme in the gut testing that when it's abnormal or in a certain type of range, we can see that that is now recirculating those toxins and those hormones back into the body. So that's a very important enzyme marker that's called beta glucuronidase. You should remember that. Very important part of gut health is liver health. Phase 2 liver detoxification. Now gut health is the phase 3. We used to talk about liver detoxification in 2 phases. Phase 1, which takes the toxins and the medications and transforms them into materials that our body can remove through our gut or through urine, through our kidneys. Those are 2 phases we saw. And in between those 2 phases, there were these reactive metabolites that were created that we knew that were more toxic than the toxins themselves. So we needed to get those 2 phases really working synergistically. But now there's a third phase, and that's gut health. That's elimination through the gut. The gut liver connection is really what's so important. And that's the gut liver and now hormone connection for both men and women. Estrogen can get recycled, and we can see in the body that's not a good thing, and we can see that on a very advanced stool test. It's so important. So that was the 4R program, but now we're really getting into a much more advanced gut microbiome stool testing and advancing our technology with the DNA PCR quantitative. Again, you need to know the numbers because many of these bacteria, yeast, fungus, even H. pylori, are there in our gut. They're working in a symbiosis with our good bacteria in a symphony like a rainforest where every species does have a role, but when one species wants to start taking over and overgrowing, it does wreak havoc. And this is what dysbiosis is all was that word really means, is when certain types of bacteria are overgrown. Some of these bacteria aren't really pathogens, meaning they don't create disease, but when they're overgrown, they could become inflammatory. They create these what's called lipopolysaccharides, LPS, in the research. And you see all these studies about inflammation in LPS and chronic diseases in LPS. And where is this LPS coming from? Well, it's coming from an overgrowth of so-called commensurate, meaning they're not really pathogens, they're not causing disease, but when they overgrow, they create this inflammation from these lipopolysaccharides. That's essential to get into a good control of those species of bacteria, because when they overgrow, they become inflammatory. So in other words, you need the quantitative, you need to quantify, because they're going to be there. You can't just see if they're there or not. You got to see in how much quantity. That's the key. So let's talk about some of the details that we should be looking at. We mentioned keystone species. Keystone species are important for creating these metabolites, these chemical messengers that these bacteria create, and that's what's really important to know. And so butyrate is one of them, and we just saw an article that just came out about butyrate. It's in a journal. I could pull it up right here. Um, it's about butyrate, a metabolite of good bacteria in the gut. Therapeutic effects of butyrate on pediatrics. It was a pediatric study, and it basically therapeutic effects of butyrate on pediatric obesity, December 5th, 2022, in the journal. It's in the JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, Network Open, and it's in the pediatric section. Can oral butyrate supplementation be effective in the treatment of pediatric obesity? Isn't that interesting that butyrate is a metabolite of these good bacteria? And so we need to measure good bacteria in the quantity. We want them to be in robust amounts. So Rosaburia, fecal bacterium, these are some of the keystone species, bifidus, and these are some of the Clostridia, some of the major players that create butyrate. And that is what's so important. The other study we want to mention that just came out is when they replaced the microbiome from a younger, in this case, it was a rat study, and we can go right to that as well. That study was in gut microbiota. Gut microbiota of the young ameliorates physical fitness for the old, of the aged in mice. So they replaced the microbiome from a young mouse to an older mouse, and their grip strength, their metabolism, all improved. So that's really amazing that just replacing the younger microbiome can affect the older mouse, but it helped increase their skin improved, their grip strength improved, metabolism improved, and that was just about replacing the microbiome. And another study, which was one of the original studies a few years ago, they replaced the microbiome of an overweight person um, to a regular body composition person, and they started gaining weight, and vice versa. So we could see when you replace the microbiome, which they do in the hospital, a fecal microbiome transplant, they call it, it changes the whole metabolism of the person. So we really want to work on getting to the root cause of why there's inflammation can be the gut. We can see that from the immune system being overreactive can be coming from the gut. It's called the gut associated lymphoid tissue. It's the mucus layer of the gut. So when that layer becomes disturbed, sometimes from taking medications like NSAIDs, those are anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen and Aleve, drinking alcohol, antibiotics, acid blockers. These are all things that can affect the microbiome. Lack of sleep, very stressful events, just changes that microbiome. And therefore, that is when this beginning process of an overgrowth of these opportunistic bacteria, possibly parasites, yeast, and H. pylori, which can be damaging to the lining of the gut lining. That's what's so important to really look at, if it's overgrown. And again, we can look at it if it's the certain more dangerous type of H. pylori, because it's a DNA PCR test. So we could look to see if there's been changes in that bacteria, the H. pylori, that's making it more virulent, more dangerous. That's really key. We also want to make sure that the person is digesting fats, because that's where your fat soluble vitamins come from. We want to make sure that the person is not only digesting fats, but has enough digestive enzymes, and their enzymes from their pancreas. And again, the pancreas gut connection that we see on these very advanced stool tests, if there's enough digestive enzymes to digest carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. We want to make sure that there's no food reactivities, reactions to food, not just these allergies that are more immediate, but delayed reactions, which are called IgG. But more specific, we want to see if those foods are activating the complement pathways, which are these more inflammatory pathways. So it has to be a very advanced food sensitivity test, not the standard IgG test. And again, these stool tests They all tell you something good, but what you really need is a very advanced DNA PCR quantitative telling you why, how much, because again, these bacteria are always there. Bacteria, parasites, yeast, they work in a symphony, but when they overgrow is when there's a problem. So we need to quantify. We do want to be specific. We want to look for these keystone species because they produce these very important metabolites like butyrate. And we want to make sure that these opportunistic species that we know are inflammatory, like Klebsiella, Prevotella, Pseudomonas, and inflammatory and autoimmune stimulating, we want to make sure they're not overgrown. We want to make sure that there's certain parasites are not overgrown and a person doesn't have symptoms, meaning vitamin and mineral deficiencies, because a healthy gut means healthy vitamin and mineral absorption, such as calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, uh, B vitamins such as biotin, fat soluble vitamins such as vitamin K, all require a healthy gut microbiome. So, for those of you tuning in or see this on the replay, you could reach out to me by a direct message, or you could reach out to our website, which is right here listed, www.sfihd.com. You could reach out for a 15-minute discovery call to see how we can help you with your gut health. If you say that you saw it here on our live here, we will we will uh, let you talk about, we would introduce you to our gut protocol, give you an opportunity to see if that's going to be right for you. We would give you a discount on this gut DNA PCR testing that we do here, and on the discount on the consult, because you tuned in and you were part of this, and you're in and you do want to fix your gut health. So just let us know, direct message, put in a comment. You could let us know, and we'll ask you for your email or a way to contact you, and we'll give you and let you know our gut protocol. We'll let you know how to get to these very advanced gut DNA PCR quantitative stool tests that we here can help you interpret and get good results and give you good recommendations to optimize your gut health with everything that we spoke here on this live. All right, everyone, have a healthy, happy day. Thank you for watching, and reach out to us if any questions in any way we can help you. Have a healthy day.